Hey guys, so we're going to be setting up the backend to handle uploading of files. Now before we get started with that, I found a small little thing I forgot I wanted to add, and that's right here in our create file link. We are just stringifying the body twice when we don't need to. So if we do have a file, I'm just going to say const string body is equal to serializable body, since we already turned it into a string by stringifying it. And then when we overwrite it here, I don't have to re-JSON the body, I can just pass in the string body here. Okay, so that's all I want to change with that. Now let's get started on our server. Alright, so here's our server. Now how are we going to do this? Well, Apollo Upload has a server attachment to it, so we're going to copy how they do this as well. Now since we're not using Apollo client, the upload one, we need to basically do the same thing, look at the source and grab the parts and get to work for ours. Now he recently just changed this 9 days ago to add busboy, and he is holding basically the stream in memory, I believe now, in the resolver. And before, how he did it is with Formidable, and I did the one with Formidable before and I got that to work and I really liked it, so that's what we're going to be using. This new busboy one I'm going to take a look at and see how I like it, but I'm not sure how I like holding the stream in memory. That's kind of interesting, I suppose, but I prefer how Formidable does it, where it just writes it out to a file, which you guys will see. So we're just going to come over here and we're going to go back a commit, well, a couple commits here. So 10 days ago he had the Formidable version, so we're going to click on that commit and we're going to browse files, come over here to source and look at the index. So here he is with Formidable, and this process request function is what we're going to take over. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and say yarn add Formidable to install that, and then copy the inside of this. So we're going to make some middleware here that's going to do this for us. So const file middleware, and I'm just going to paste this guy right in there. Actually, no, I'm not. Undo. I got rid of my file. Okay, because what I wanted to do is add request and response. And we're going to put our code in here. So this is the bulk of it, but down here you notice he adds a little wrapper where he just checks this, and we're going to use next, I suppose, as well. And we're going to copy this. Alright, so first things first, we want to check the request if it's a multi-part form data. If it's not, he's returning next. We kind of want to just do the opposite. So we're going to return next. I guess, so the way he's doing it, if he's returning form data, return next, and I prefer using curly braces, so we're going to curly brace this guy. So basically it's checking whether the request is a multi-part form data, which is how we're sending it from the client if it's a file. Normally it is JSON data that comes up, so that's how you know whether there's a file included. And if there's a file included, he wants you to do all this stuff here. So let's copy that and paste it in here. Okay, so first thing he does is make sure the upload directory is good. So for us, we are going to close some of these. I'm just going to create a folder called files, and I'm going to call that my upload directory. So const uploader is equal to files. And so I don't have to worry about keeping this up to sync and making sure it's created. Now if you want to create, for example, the directory on the fly for whatever reason, you could use node's makedir function here. Okay, or what he was using. Oops. So we need to import Formidable. So import Formidable from Formidable. And give this a save. It should reformat. Didn't yet. What doesn't like here? Oh, trailing space. I'm just going to format this real quick. There we go. Get rid of some of the red. So he returns a promise here. We don't really have to do a promise because we can just call this next function whenever we're done with the middleware. So I'm going to get rid of the promise here. And we don't need you. And we don't need you. So how Formidable works is it'll parse the form. That's what this incoming form does. We don't have to worry about that. And then parse is the function that is called where it'll actually parse the file, and we just pass in the request. So pass in request. And then here, operations, that is one of the fields, and then it grabs here all the files. Now if we come back to our create file link real quick, you notice we pass two things. Our files, which we called file, but that's fine. No matter what you call it, it'll put all of them in a files object. And then operations here matches, that name matches right here. And this operation has all the GraphQL body that we need. So first thing, he redirects if there's an error. We're just gonna console log if there's an error, since we're not doing a promise. Here he is just parsing the operations into an object. That way we can set the variables for this. So get rid of this. I'm going to say const operations. That's fine. And actually we already used operations. I'm just going to call this document. And so here we're checking if a file is uploaded. We don't really need to do this. I guess we can do check. I mean, it's fine to check the file's length, I suppose. We don't need that comment. Alright, so put this here. So this is the meat of this. Now this won't make sense unless I show you one thing. So come over here and I'll show you. Oops, I wanted to show you guys the README. There we go. I didn't like that I opened another tab. Okay, so we need to create a schema type called upload, or we're going to call it file. And what that is it's going to have a name, type, size, path, and this is all of the file. So this name has to match what we expect in our mutation. So actually, before we finish with this, so this makes more sense, we're going to set up the schema, and then we're going to populate the schema data that we need right here in this guy. So I'm going to head to our schema, and I'm going to add this to our message. So on type message, I'm going to create two more fields. I'm going to create a path, which is a string, and a file type, which is a string. So the path is basically going to be the URL, and we could call this instead of path, better name would be, I guess, URL. And so this is going to be the path to the file. So that might be something like localhost 8080/files/uploaded file, right? So we're going to store that so we can reference it later. And then the file types, whether it's an image or an audio file, or a text file so we know how to handle it later. And so we need to create a new input type. So type input, which is a file, and this is going to take 2 fields. We could take up to 4, but I only really care about the path and the type, so that's all we're going to grab. So type is going to be a string, and that's going to be required. Actually, no, we don't have to require, or we should require the type if it is a file, and then the path, which is a string as well. Both those guys are required. And then when we create a mutation, the text is going to be optional now, because now we can either send a file or a text. And maybe, I was going to say maybe we create 2 mutations, create a message with text, create message with file, but I think this is fine. So either we allow text or we allow files now to be uploaded. So this file will have a type and a path. So how this works is we send the whole file object, which will have more stuff, and then we just upload it to our files directory, and then we pick off the type and the path and we send that to our resolver to handle it, to do whatever it wants with the type and the path. Now let's also add this to our models. So 2 more fields on this guy with both our strings. So this is going to be the URL and the what did I call it? The file type. I'm just going to call this, actually, I was going to say to avoid having to add another camel case guy, but we don't even need to worry about that because this is not camel cased file type. That's a string as well. Okay, so our database has it, our schema has it. So now I need to pass to the resolver this input. So a type and a path. So this file object here, files, and we're really just going to be worried about one file, and that is, if we come over here, a file called file. Because notice how we're iterating over the keys here and checking if the length, we're basically just checking if this is empty or not. And one of our files should be called files.file, because that's the name that we uploaded. So we can just get him. Now if you have more files, you can do it in a more generic way like they're doing here. So we're going to grab our file, and then from our file we can get the name, the type, everything that they're getting here, but we only care about 2 fields, type and path from our file. And we could do this in one step, right? Type, path, those 2 are equivalent, so let's get rid of that. And this will automatically upload it for us, so we don't have to do anything about that. We're just going to use this path, and to show you guys, I'm just going to console log the type and the path so you guys can see it. Path, and I don't need any of these things. Now here what they're doing is, give that a save. So operations path dot set variables path, all this junk. What it's doing is this document has variables, and so we need to set what the type and the path is for the file variable, because if we take a look at our schema over here, we're expecting a file input with these 2 fields. So variables.file is equal to, and it's expecting a file type, which is type, and a path, which is path. And we're going to get rid of this. So once we set the document, how GraphQL works is it expects the document, which is all the GraphQL query or mutation. In our case, it'll be mutation, to be in the body. So we're going to say request.body is equal to document, and then we're going to say next. And next just means go on to the next one. And oh, am I using path twice? Where are we using path? oh, up here, yeah, to join these for the types. Okay, so let's call this something else. So if you didn't know this, you can rename this guy just like this. You do a colon and then whatever you want to name it. So we'll call this file path, and we'll say path is equal to file path. And I don't know if that should be lowercase or not. We'll just camel case it, that's fine. And I'll console log the file path as well. Okay, so now we can handle this. We'll pass it to our resolver. So let's update our resolver to handle this. So we're gonna come over here, and in our message, create message right here. So right now we're just passing in the arguments, but we need to do a change to one of our arguments, right? So I'm just going to grab the file off of this. So grab file and then args. So I'm going to say const message data is equal to args, and I'm going to say if file, we're going to say message data dot file type is equal to file dot type, and then message data dot URL, is that what I called it? We're trying to match these up now. So yep, URL is equal to file dot path, and then we just need to prepend this with HTTP localhost 8080 slash, and alright, cool. So this is just our URL for our server, and we don't really want to, actually I changed my mind. I was about to hard code what our server is, localhost, into this, and we plan on putting this into production, so this is bad to hard code this here. So instead of having that there, what I'm going to do is actually just store the path. You know what, we are going to store the URL, that's fine, but when I grab this message, we're going to have to do some manipulation on the URL. That way we don't feed back just the path. We need to grab the server's URL too. Okay, so this looks good. And then here we're going to, instead of args, we're going to say message data. So all we're doing here is saving 2 extra properties, and we're also uploading in the middle. Now, we did a lot of work on the back end. Let's see if any of it means anything and if this stuff actually works. So let's come to our front end here, and we're going to create a message. So let's come over here to our send message, for example. This is going to be in our file upload component, is the one we're going to change. So on drop, we want to create a new message. So message, we can come, we'll just create a new query. That's cool with me. So localhost 8080, we're going to come over here to GraphQL. And, ooh, I'm an 8081, aren't I? Yeah, okay. Well, good thing I didn't put 8080 in there too. So we're going to create a mutation here to create message. This one is just going to have a channel ID and then a file, since we're not going to have any text. So file, and I don't know what the response of create message is, so let's go over here, create message. Okay, just a boolean, that's fine. So let's create our channel ID variable, which is just going to be an int, and then a file variable, which is a optional file. So I'm going to say const create message, create file message, we'll say, mutation is equal to GQL, paste this in, and I'm going to import GQL from GraphQL tag. And then here, I'm also going to import GraphQL from React Apollo. And I misspelled that. And we need to wrap this like that. And so we're going to wrap our component with GraphQL. And we're going to inject our mutation, create file, not factory, create mutation. And so here as one of our props, we're going to have a mutate prop. And now we need to pass in channel ID as well. That way we can use that as a variable to our mutation that we're using here. So instead of console.log files, what we're going to do is, instead of files, we're going to just grab the first file. So file, so I'm destructuring this, grabbing the first element in the array. And then I'm going to say const response is equal to, and I'm going to make this an async function so we can listen to the response, see if there's any problems, is equal to mutate, passing in variables, and here we're going to have channel ID and file. And the names match up, so we're good. And down here I'm just going to console.log response so we see what happens when we get this. And looks like I just needed to remove that. Cool. So I think we're good on the front end to try this out. We need to pass in our channel ID here. So everywhere we're calling file upload, which I believe is in our message container here, pass the channel ID. And are we already getting the channel ID here? We need the channel ID, and it's one of our props, so perfect. So let's grab that channel ID, pass that guy in here, channel ID, and we're going to do the same thing for sending a message. So channel ID, and do we have the channel ID for this one? Possibly not. Yeah, I don't think we do. So channel ID, we need to add that channel ID. Okay, so anywhere we're using this send message component, which I believe is just in direct messages and create team, we're going to worry about direct messages at a later date. So I'm just going to get create or view team working. So this is where we have send message, and I'm going to pass in channel ID, which is equal to channel.id. Okay, cool. So all this looks good. Let's give it a try. Alright, so we're already getting a problem, and that's because we need to log in no, that's not because we need to log in. I was going to say, I haven't even dropped the database yet, which is actually something we need to do. We're getting a map error. I'm assuming it's a problem with, so let's look at the network tab, refresh. I'm assuming it's a problem with our GraphQL, because this was working before. Let's see what we get back. Column URL does not exist. Yeah. Okay, so we just need to drop the database, I believe. So let's do that. I was going to drop it from pSQL, but we can just come over here and say force in our index. Say force true. And format that guy. There we go. Save, let it do its thing. So we're going to have to create a new user and create a new team to allow us to do this. And get rid of that now. Save it. And that should have gave it enough time. I'm just going to come right here to see all the users. There should be none of them. Cool. And actually I need to register first. So bob@bob.com. log in, create a team, team 1, submit. Cool, we're in. Hey, cool, I can still send messages. That didn't just break. Let's try uploading one. And I'm just going to come to my desktop and upload our TMO. And we broke stuff. So let's see what went wrong. I like to search by GraphQL. Looks like it did make it to the server, so I'm going to open up the server's logs right here, and we can see what we did wrong. Must provide a document. So it didn't. I think it didn't like what we were doing in our middleware. It didn't look like it uploaded a file either. Oops. I'm going to try refreshing this actually and see. Nope, no file there. So come back. Oh, we already have this up. So I'm going to console log this. So we are console logging this. And we just did not add the middleware. So file middleware, let's add that. So file middleware. I'm going to add this after body parser. And let's try this again. Plus TMO. Alright, we still get an error. Looks like the file uploaded correctly, so very cool. It won't show it. File type unknown field, in type expected string found null. Variable file got invalid value, file type, and path. Yeah, because we are supposed to. Let's check our schema over here. I think I just messed up. I think I messed up this. I think this was just supposed to be called type. And type and path, I believe, is what I set it. Yeah, I just messed that up. So it needs to match. I shouldn't explain this. It needs to match this input because that's what it's expecting. So that's all it was complaining about. Let's try this again. It uploaded the file correctly, so that's really good. So let's upload it again. Can't return null for field message.text. Oh, so that's a thing now. Let's go over to our message type. So text can now be null. Okay. Cool. I think this message right here is our image. So we haven't got it working to render images yet, but looks like we didn't get any errors. We see our file uploaded here, so that's cool. What I can do is I can ls files, and I can open one of the files. Open on Max, we'll just open up the file, and sure enough we see the TMO that we uploaded. So cool, it looks like uploading worked. I'm also just going to go into pSQL, connect to Slack, select all from our messages table, and so first one got messed up because we didn't actually pass in the right thing. So I'm just going to delete from messages where ID is equal to 1 and select all. Okay, so this looks good. So here we're storing files/upload and the name of the upload and our file type. So now we can reference this as well. So I think we're done with this video. I think we got everything we wanted to get working here. Our backend can now upload files okay. So our next step with this that we're going to take is to actually show the images here, because we know the image is path because we're storing that in our database, and we see the files right here. We have them. We just need to get Express to render the files or serve these static files, grab them here, and then we're going to do a couple interesting. The reason why we stored this file type over here is we're going to do some interesting stuff. We don't like show the image file type the same as maybe a text file and so forth. So we're going to show it differently depending on what the file type is right here. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will push this code on GitHub, and I need to ignore these files so I don't send you guys all these files. So let's just do add files there, save that, cool. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.